I was leaving him. The divorce papers were already signed, hidden in my desk drawer, waiting for the right moment. Tonight was supposed to be that moment, until he looked at me like that, like he was seeing me for the first time in 6 months, like I was oxygen and he'd been suffocating, like the very sight of me in this red dress had just shattered every wall he'd built between us. Arya. His voice was low, dangerous. Where the hell do you think you're going dressed like that? I didn't turn around, didn't give him the satisfaction, just continued fastening my diamond earring, watching him in the vanity mirror, watching the way his jaw clenched, the way his hands fisted at his sides, the way his chest rose and fell beneath that perfectly pressed white shirt. 6 months. That's how long it had been since my husband had looked at me with anything other than polite indifference. 183 days of sleeping in separate rooms, of conversations limited to good morning and I'll be home late, of existing in the same mansion but living in completely different worlds. 183 days of my heart breaking a little more each time he walked past me like I was invisible. Well, I wasn't invisible anymore. Before we continue, let me ask you something. Have you ever loved someone who was still there, but already gone? If the story touches anything you've lived through, or are living through right now, stay with me. And if stories like this matter to you, take a quiet second to like and subscribe. You're not alone here. Out, I said simply, meeting his gaze in the mirror. To my law school reunion. Remember? I mentioned it 3 times this week. A lie. I hadn't mentioned it at all. Because he wouldn't have listened anyway. Wouldn't have cared. Wouldn't have noticed if I'd walked around the house naked. Except he was noticing now. Oh, he was definitely noticing. Damien crossed the threshold of my bedroom. Our bedroom. The one he'd moved out of 4 months ago without explanation. Without discussion. Just a quiet, I'll take the east wing, and the sound of a door closing between us. That door might as well have been made of steel. You're not going anywhere, he said. I laughed. The sound was brittle. Sharp enough to cut. Excuse me? You heard me. He stopped 3 feet away. Close enough that I could smell his cologne. Cedar and smoke and something uniquely him. Something that used to make me feel safe. That dress. That makeup. Those heels. You're not leaving this house. Last time I checked, I'm a grown woman. I stood, smoothing the red silk over my hips. The dress fit like sin. Backless. A neckline that plunged just enough to be dangerous. A slit that ran all the way up my thigh. I can wear whatever I want. Go wherever I want. Do whatever I want. Not dressed like that you can't. Watch me. I grabbed my clutch from the vanity. Turned toward the door. Damien moved. 1 second I was walking away. The next his hand wrapped around my wrist. Gentle, but firm. Stopping me in my tracks. The contact sent electricity shooting up my arm. It had been so long since he'd touched me. So long since I'd felt his skin against mine. So long since. Let go, I whispered. No. Damien, do you have any idea what you look like right now? His voice was strained, like he was barely holding himself together. Do you have any concept of what walking into a room full of men dressed like this will do? Maybe that's the point. His grip tightened. What the hell is that supposed to mean? I finally turned to face him. Really face him. For the first time in months, we were close enough that I could see the flecks of gold in his dark eyes. Could see the exhaustion etched into the lines around his mouth. Could see something I didn't recognize flickering in his expression. Fear. It means, I said slowly, that maybe I'm tired of being ignored. Maybe I'm tired of being married to a ghost. Maybe I'm tired of wondering what I did wrong to make you stop wanting me. Stop wanting you? He stared at me like I'd lost my mind. Are you insane? Then what would you call it? My voice rose. What would you call 6 months of silence? Of separate bedrooms? Of you acting like I'm a stranger you're forced to live with? Of looking through me instead of at me? Of, I was trying to protect you. The words exploded from him. Raw. Desperate. I froze. Protect me from what? Damien's hand dropped from my wrist. He stepped back. Ran his fingers through his hair. The perfectly styled hair that was now completely disheveled. He looked wrecked. From me. he said quietly. From what I'm becoming. From the things I have to do to keep this empire running. My heart stopped. What are you talking about? The company's in trouble, Arya. He wouldn't meet my eyes. Has been for 8 months. We're hemorrhaging money. The board wants my head. Investors are pulling out. Competitors are circling like sharks. And every single day I wake up wondering if this is the day it all falls apart. I felt like I'd been punched. 8 months? You've been dealing with this for 8 months and you didn't tell me? How could I? Finally, his eyes met mine. They were tortured. Broken. How could I come home to you every night and admit that I'm failing? That the man you married, the one who promised you the world, can't even keep his own company afloat. Damien, you married a billionaire, Arya. A man who had everything figured out. A man who could give you anything you wanted. Not this. He gestured at himself. Not whatever I'm turning into. Tears burned in my eyes. Is that really what you think? My voice shook. That I married you for your money? For your success? For your damn empire? Didn't you? The question hit me like a slap. Get out. Arya. I said get out. Pointed at the door. If that's what you think of me after 3 years of marriage, then we have nothing left to say to each other. I didn't mean. Yes, you did. A tear slipped down my cheek. You meant every word. You think I'm that shallow, that materialistic, that I only love you for what you can give me instead of who you are. That's not. The divorce papers are in my desk drawer. The words tumbled out before I could stop them. Second drawer from the top. Already signed. All you have to do is add your signature and this whole mistake of a marriage can be over. The color drained from his face. What? You heard me. I wiped my eyes angrily. I was planning to give them to you tonight, after the reunion. But you know what? Save us both the trouble. Sign them now. End this. Because I can't do this anymore. Can't live with someone who thinks so little of me. Who shuts me out instead of letting me in. Who treats me like I'm made of glass instead of treating me like a partner. You can't be serious. I've never been more serious in my life. Damien stared at me, really stared at me, like he was seeing me for the first time, like the reality of what I just said was finally sinking in. You were leaving me. His voice was hollow. You were actually going to leave me. What did you expect? I laughed bitterly. You left me first. 4 months ago when you moved into the East Wing. 6 months ago when you stopped touching me. 8 months ago when you decided I couldn't handle the truth. I was trying to protect you. I didn't need protection. I shouted. I needed my husband. I needed you to talk to me, to trust me, to let me be there for you instead of shutting me out like I'm some fragile doll who'll break if things get hard. You don't understand. Then make me understand. I stepped toward him. Tell me what's going on. Tell me what you're so afraid of. Tell me why you'd rather lose your wife than admit you're struggling. Because I can't. His voice broke. Because if I start talking about it, if I let you see how scared I am, how lost I feel, how every morning I wake up wondering if this is the day I lose everything. He stopped, swallowed hard. I'll fall apart, he finished quietly. And I can't afford to fall apart. Not when so many people depend on me. Not when the company needs me strong. Not when you need. I need you honest. I closed the distance between us. I need you real. I need you human. I don't need you perfect, Damien. I never did. His hands came up, hesitated, then cupped my face like I was something precious. I've been so stupid, he whispered. Yes, you have. I thought if I kept my distance, if I handled everything myself, if I didn't burden you with my failures. They're not just your failures. I covered his hands with mine. They're ours. We're married. That means we carry things together. The good and the bad. The success and the struggle. All of it. I don't know how to do that. His forehead dropped to mine. I don't know how to be weak in front of you. It's not weakness. My voice softened. It's trust. It's partnership. It's love. I do love you. The words came out desperate. Urgent. God, Arya. I love you so much it terrifies me. That's why I pulled away. Because the thought of you seeing me fail, of losing your respect, of not being enough for you anymore. You're enough. I pulled back to look at him. You've always been enough. With or without the company. With or without the money. With or without any of it. You're enough because you're you. Something cracked in his expression. I heard you, he said suddenly. 3 weeks ago. On the phone with your sister. You said being married to me was like being married to a stranger. That you felt alone even when we were in the same room. That you didn't know how much longer you could do this. Understanding crashed over me. You think I was talking about leaving you? Weren't you? I was talking about the distance. I grabbed his shirt. About feeling shut out. About missing my husband. About being lonely in my own marriage. I wasn't saying I wanted out. I was saying I wanted back in. His eyes closed. When they opened again, they were wet. I'm such an idiot. Yes, you are. I smiled through my tears. But you're my idiot. The divorce papers. I signed them because I thought you didn't want me anymore. My voice cracked. Because 6 months of silence and separate bedrooms and polite indifference made me think you'd fallen out of love with me. That maybe you regretted marrying me. That maybe. He kissed me. Crashed his mouth against mine like a drowning man finding air. I gasped and he swallowed the sound. His hands were in my hair. On my waist. Pulling me closer like he was trying to eliminate any space between us. Like he was trying to make up for 6 months of distance in 6 seconds. When we finally broke apart, both breathing hard, his eyes were wild. I have never, he said fiercely. Not for one single second regretted marrying you. You are the best thing that has ever happened to me. The only good thing in my life that makes sense. And I almost lost you because I was too proud and too stupid and too scared to just talk to you. You haven't lost me yet. Yet. He looked panicked. Arya. But you will if you ever shut me out like that again. I poked his chest. No more separate bedrooms. No more silence. No more handling everything alone. From now on, we're a team. Partners. In everything. Understood. Understood. He kissed me again. Softer this time. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Tell me about the company. I threaded my fingers through his hair. Tell me everything. What's happening? How bad is it? What can we do? We. Yes, we. I have a law degree, remember? And I'm pretty good with contracts and negotiations. So talk to me. Let me help. Damien studied my face like he was memorizing it. Then he took my hand. Led me to the bed. We sat down together and for the first time in 8 months he started talking. Really talking. The Singapore deal fell through, he started slowly. Lost us 30 million. Then the Thompson merger collapsed. They went with Hartley Industries instead. Said our stock was too volatile. Too risky. I listened. Squeezed his hand. Let him continue. The tech division is underperforming. We invested heavily in a new software platform that's 2 years behind schedule. We've burned through the entire development budget with nothing to show for it. The board thinks I made a bad call. That I bet on the wrong technology. Did you? I asked gently. I don't know anymore. He rubbed his face. At the time, it seemed brilliant. Revolutionary. But now it just seems like another mistake in a long line of mistakes. What else? 3 major investors pulled their funding last month. Said they'd lost confidence in my leadership. The stock price has dropped 40% since January. Employees are nervous. Some of the best people are already jumping ship. And the board. He laughed bitterly. The board had a secret meeting last week about replacing me. My heart clenched. How do you know it was secret? Because my CFO warned me. He's one of the few people still loyal to me. Said they're building a case. Documenting every misstep. Every failed deal. Every lost opportunity. They want me out, Arya. They want to take everything I've built and hand it to someone else. They can't do that. They can if they get enough votes. If they convince the shareholders that I'm a liability instead of an asset. I was quiet for a moment. Processing. Thinking. What about the Harrison account? I asked suddenly. Last I heard, that was solid. Stable. A guaranteed revenue stream. Damien looked at me in surprise. You remember the Harrison account? I remember everything you tell me, Damien. Or at least, everything you used to tell me before you stopped talking to me entirely. He winced. That's fair. And yes, Harrison is still solid. It's actually one of the few bright spots. But it's not enough to offset everything else we're losing. What if we expanded it? Expanded it how? My mind was racing now. All those years of law school. All that training in contracts and negotiations and corporate strategy. Finally useful. Harrison Industries has 3 subsidiaries, right? But we only have a contract with the parent company. What if we approached the subsidiaries directly? Offered them the same services but at a competitive rate? We could triple our revenue from that relationship alone. Damien stared at me. That's actually brilliant. Why didn't I think of that? Because you've been trying to think of everything by yourself instead of using the incredibly smart and legally trained wife who's been sitting in this house for 6 months desperate to help you. He pulled me into his arms. I'm an idiot. We've established that. I rested my head on his shoulder. What about the tech platform? The one that's behind schedule? What about it? Can we pivot? Use what we've already developed for something else? Something faster to market? I don't know. Maybe. He pulled back to look at me. How are you doing this? How are you just solving problems like it's easy? It's not easy. I touched his face. But it's easier when you're not trying to do it alone. When you have someone to brainstorm with, to share the burden with, to remind you that one setback doesn't define you. I've missed you so much, he whispered. I've been right here. I know. And I've been an idiot for not seeing it. For not using the incredible resource I married. For thinking I had to be strong and silent and handle everything myself like some kind of martyr. You're not a martyr, Damien. You're human. And humans need help sometimes. Need support. Need partnership. I need you, he said simply. That's what I need. In everything. Always. I kissed him softly. Then you have me. For better or worse. Remember. I remember. His arms tightened around me. I just forgot for a while what worse actually meant. Thought it meant shielding you from everything hard. Turns out it means facing the hard things together. Exactly. I stood up, pulling him with me. Come on. Where are we going? To your office. We have work to do. Now? It's almost 8 o'clock. Do you want to save your company or not? He smiled. Actually smiled. For the first time in months. Lead the way. We spent the next 4 hours in his home office. Going through files. Reviewing contracts. Analyzing data. Making lists and plans and strategies. I saw things he'd missed. Opportunities he'd overlooked. Connections he hadn't made. Not because I was smarter, but because I was fresh. Because I wasn't buried under 8 months of stress and fear and exhaustion. Because I could see the forest while he'd been lost in the trees. We should call Marcus, I said around midnight, looking up from a spreadsheet. Your lawyer. Have him review the board's bylaws. There might be a clause we can use to limit their power. It's midnight, Arya. So, this is important. And Marcus bills by the hour anyway. He'll appreciate the extra revenue. Damien laughed. Actually laughed. The sound was rusty from disuse but beautiful. God. I've missed this, he said. Working. No. Working together. Being a team. Remembering why I fell in love with you in the first place. I looked up from the computer. Why did you fall in love with me? Because you're brilliant. He came around the desk. Spun my chair to face him. Because you challenge me. Because you see solutions where I see problems. Because you make me better. Because you're the only person who's ever made me feel like I don't have to be perfect to be worthy of love. Tears filled my eyes again. I almost gave up on us. I whispered. I know. He knelt in front of me. I almost let you. And that would have been the biggest failure of my life. Not the company. Not the money. Losing you. You haven't lost me. I won't. He kissed my hands. Not ever again. I promise. We worked until 3 in the morning. Then stumbled to bed together. Our bed. Not the guest room in the East Wing. And for the first time in 4 months, I fell asleep in my husband's arms. In the morning, I woke to the smell of coffee. Damien was sitting on the edge of the bed, fully dressed, holding 2 mugs. Good morning, he said softly. I sat up, accepting the coffee. What time is it? 7. I have a board meeting at 9. My stomach dropped. Today. But he didn't look scared anymore. He looked determined. And I have a plan. Thanks to you. Tell me. He outlined everything. The Harrison expansion. The tech platform pivot. The financial restructuring I'd suggested. The legal strategy to limit the board's power. It was good. Really good. I'm coming with you, I said suddenly. To the board meeting? Yes, I'm still listed as legal counsel on paper, right? From when we first got married and I was fresh out of law school. Technically yes, but you haven't actually. Then I'm coming. As your lawyer, your advisor, your partner. Damien's eyes widened. Arya, are you sure? The board can be brutal. They'll tear into every suggestion. Question everything. Let them. I threw back the covers. I can handle it. Question is, can you handle having your wife in the room while they try to tear you apart? I'd prefer it, actually. He smiled. Knowing you're there. Having your support. It changes everything. 2 hours later, we walked into that boardroom together. 12 men in expensive suits looked up in surprise when I entered behind Damien. Gentlemen, Damien said calmly, I believe you all remember my wife, Arya. She'll be joining us today as legal counsel. This is highly irregular. One of them sputtered. We didn't approve. You don't need to approve the CEO's choice of legal representation, I said smoothly, taking a seat. According to section 4.3 of your bylaws, which I reviewed last night. Silence. Damien hid a smile. The meeting was brutal, just like he'd warned. They attacked every decision he'd made, every failed deal, every loss. But this time he didn't face it alone. Every time they asked a pointed question, I was there with data, with legal precedent, with strategic alternatives. When they questioned the tech platform investment, I presented the pivot strategy, complete with market analysis and projected revenue. When they brought up the lost investors, I outlined the Harrison expansion plan, with contracts already drafted and ready for signature. When they suggested his leadership was the problem, I calmly reminded them of every successful quarter before this rough patch. Every innovation he'd brought to the company. Every risk that had paid off. By the end of 2 hours, the room had shifted. The hostile energy had transformed into something else. Possibility. We'll need to review these proposals, the chairman said finally. But they have merit. Take all the time you need, Damien said confidently. We'll be here when you're ready to discuss next steps. We left the boardroom together. The moment the door closed behind us, Damien pulled me into an empty conference room and kissed me breathless. You were incredible, he said against my lips. We were incredible. I smiled up at him. Together, he agreed. From now on, always together. The board approved our proposals 3 days later. The Harrison expansion went through within a week. The tech platform pivot launched 2 months ahead of our revised schedule. And slowly, painfully, the company started to recover. It wasn't instant. It wasn't easy. But it was progress. And through all of it, Damien and I were a team. He moved back into our bedroom that very night. Started sharing every decision. Every worry. Every triumph. We worked side by side. Late nights and early mornings. Strategy sessions over breakfast. Contract reviews over dinner. And somewhere in the midst of saving his company, we saved our marriage. 3 months after that boardroom meeting, we were lying in bed together. The city lights painting shadows across the ceiling. I want to renew our vows, Damien said suddenly. I turned to look at him. What? Our wedding vows. I want to say them again. But different this time. Different how? I want to promise things I didn't know to promise the first time. His fingers traced patterns on my arm. Like I promised to never shut you out. I promised to trust you with my struggles. I promised to remember that we're stronger together than apart. Damien, marry me again, Arya. He rolled to face me. Let me do it right this time. Let me stand in front of everyone we love and promise to be the husband you deserve. The partner you need. The man who's brave enough to be vulnerable with you. Tears slipped down my cheeks. Yes, 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 1,000 times yes. He kissed me then. long and slow and sweet. And 4 months later, we stood in a garden surrounded by fairy lights and flowers, surrounded by friends and family and everyone we loved. And we renewed our vows. With new promises, better promises, real promises. I promised to always push him to let me in. He promised to always be honest about his struggles. I promised to be his partner in everything. He promised to never face anything alone. And as we said, I do for the second time, as he slipped a new ring onto my finger engraved with the words, "Stronger Together." I knew we were going to make it, not because we were perfect, but because we'd learned that love isn't about perfection. It's about choosing each other, every single day, in success and in struggle, through every triumph and every failure, through everything. And as Damien pulled me close for our first kiss as husband and wife, I knew our story was just beginning. A better story, a real story, a story of two imperfect people who almost lost each other, but found their way back, together, where we belonged. Always, if you stayed until the end, thank you. This story isn't really about money, power, or saving a company. It's about what happens when two people stop talking and what can happen when they finally start again. If this reminded you of someone, or of a moment in your own life, I'd love to hear it. Share your thoughts in the comments only if you're comfortable. And if you believe stories like this deserve to be told, support the channel by liking, subscribing, and sharing with someone who might need it. Sometimes, choosing each other again changes everything.